Ole Miss and South Carolina gets set to do battle Saturday down in Oxford. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game between the Rebels and the Gamecocks. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. He's Cole the Bear Thompson. We appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. As always, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Guys, we are inching ever so close to that 30,000 subscriber mark. We can't do it without your love and support. Also, make sure you check out our friends over at FanDuel because, as always, we are brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, FanDuel.com/SECU to join today and get started with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/SECU to get in on the action today. Amidst all the noise surrounding Lane Kiffin, Hottie Toddy's trying to punch their ticket to a college football playoff as we enter the month of November. Standing in their way, the South Carolina Gamecocks, who can't seem to get out of their own way as they find themselves in the midst of a gauntlet and a losing streak. They come in trying to play spoiler. Ole Miss trying to prevent that from happening. Once again, we are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game. As always, guys, appreciate you all tuning in. I am Chris Phillips. Joining me, as he always does, my co-host, colleague, partner in crime, one of the best in the business, Mr. Cole the Bear Thompson. Bear, appreciate you taking the time, my friend. This one's going to be a fun one down in Oxford. Night game at Vaught Hemingway. Lock the Vaught, as they say down in the SIP.
I need everybody to listen to me loud and clear when I say this, okay? I want to see Ole Miss go to the playoff this year. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. I would love nothing more than to watch as Hottie Toddy Blue is being represented in the 12-team college football playoff. Lane Kiffin accomplishes yet another goal, an 11-win season during the regular campaign. Change in history out in Oxford. But I want to make this clear. This helmet right here, it's not a guarantee to go to the playoff yet. It's not a lock. We got to stop saying, put them in Sharpie, they're going to the playoff. We did this last year. We didn't learn from our mistakes. We saw it. We knew it was happening. They played Florida. Jackson Dart had a horrible fourth quarter, and lo and behold, 9-3 was on the horizon. So let's stop saying, oh, they can go ahead and play this game. We can put it out in Sharpie that they're going to find a way. We're not doing it. This is where Lane finds a way to mess it all up. We saw it last season. They're a good team. Let's keep down them a little bit. Just a little bit. Get past this weekend, get past Florida, and then we can have a legit shit shot and go into the college football playoff. Hottie Toddy Blue, don't let me down. South Carolina, find a way to go ahead and pull off the upset, because I'll tell you what, this is going to be your Super Bowl. This is going to be this is going to be bigger than a bowl game. This is going to be bigger than playing Clemson. This could be your Super Bowl if you can pull this one out after what happened last week. And by the way, if you are a South Carolina fan, don't stand close to the stands when it comes to the fourth quarter, thinking that you're going to rush the field. Don't learn from your mistakes, guys. Please learn from your mistakes. Everybody just take a deep breath this week. Learn from mistakes. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, I was going to say, Bear, you got the powder blue helmet right there above your head, so maybe be careful what you say about Hottie Toddy. But you make good points. You make very good points. More on that in just a second. I do think it's worth bringing up. But this game taking place this weekend, Saturday night, 6 o'clock Central Time, being aired on ESPN down there in Oxford at Vaught Hemingway Stadium. Bear, via our friends at FanDuel, Ole Miss is a 12.5-point favorite. Spread opened at 13.5. Pretty big spread in this game. Over-under is set at 54.5. The series history, Ole Miss leads at all time 10-8. And, of course, the last meeting came last year. Ole Miss won that game in dominating fashion. You might recall final score of 27-3. So certainly there will be some sort of revenge on the mind for the Gamecocks and their fan base. Will they be able to get it? We shall see. But, Bear, you mentioned from the Ole Miss perspective. Let's start there. Because I do agree with you. You have to wonder. You've got South Carolina, the Citadel, which is going to be a win. Florida at home. Who knows what they looked like under Billy Gonzalez. And then you've got the Egg Bowl, which never sleep on the Egg Bowl, especially when it's being played in Starkville. But you feel really good about the idea. If you can get past South Carolina, Florida, you feel good about your heck, you'll have one loss, correct? You'll have one loss.
Yeah, you only have one loss.
Yeah, you'll be good. So really it's about getting past South Carolina and Florida. Is this where the other shoe drops for Ole Miss?
Right.
You're right. Is this the point? And we talked about it's funny, Bear. We talked about this last week, right? How does Ole Miss handle the noise? Does it serve as a distraction? Does it galvanize their team? I think it galvanized them going into Norman. I do. I think it galvanized that football team. Lane Kiffin had some fun with it. Whatever. He was just the same old Lane. That team played for him. Good stuff. Well, Bear, now that noise has been amplified because LSU's open now. And there's even more calls happening now. There's more chatter around Lane Kiffin and his name now. All that to say, Game Ole Miss obviously should win. They're a 2-touchdown essentially favorite. They should win this football game. But as you point out, we were in a very similar situation a season ago, and Lane has shown at times he will lose this game. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it is something to keep a very close eye on.
I have been beyond impressed with how Lane is handling all of the outside noise and how he's embracing it, kind of. He talked yesterday on Pat McAfee's show about knowing that these are conversations that are going on and that his team is allowing it to happen. And he's not making a decision for money. He's making a decision for what's the best fit, and that Jimmy Sexton gets pissed off when he doesn't talk about money. But, instead of just lying and saying that you're not having these conversations behind closed doors, he's embracing it. He's talking about it. And guess what? The team knows it. So they're playing like every single game is another reason why not to take the job elsewhere. Why you don't have the same things that you're going to find out in Florida that you currently have in Oxford. That Baton Rouge may have a ton of money, but it doesn't have the type of culture that we have here. So maybe, like we've said, this entire season and how different it's been for Ole Miss, it continues to be different. But there's always the what if. And we've seen the what if. Last season, very slow schedule to begin the year. They were a juggernaut. They kicked everybody's ass. Week 5 rolls around. SEC season begins. They lose Kentucky at home. I mean, they should have never lost to Kentucky. That was a bad Kentucky team. They lost Kentucky at home. You go into Florida. Florida at this point in the year knows that they're keeping Billy Napier. They're going to hit reset in 2026 maybe. But you're in the playoff. You responded. You got to win over Georgia. You were able to punch your ticket to a massive victory. 570 passing yards from Jackson Dart against Arkansas. And then you drop the shoe in the fourth quarter against Florida out in Gainesville. Like, these are games that we have seen happen. And South Carolina, at this point, had Alabama on the ropes, and they didn't finish the assignment. In my opinion, they outplayed Alabama for literally 55 minutes. And then 5 minutes came around, and the Crimson Tide did Crimson Tide stuff. I'm not saying that Ole Miss is not at the same level as Alabama. What I am saying is Ole Miss is at a point to where we've seen history play on out, where this is a game we talk about them and they get a little bit too big, and then it all comes crashing down. And then we have to wonder, was the noise too loud this week because LSU opened on up? And LSU's a little bit of a different beast than Florida. I don't think that will be the case, but you have to wonder if it is, because of history has shown us in the past it is.
Now, Bear, I want to go to the South Carolina perspective because I think it's really interesting. You mentioned that Alabama game. You were on the verge. You were ready to rush the field, and Alabama snatched away the victory you fought so hard to achieve, and they walked out of Williams-Brice Stadium with a hard-fought win themselves. Bear, maybe the best news for South Carolina is that Cocktober is over.
Yeah.
This will be November the 1st. Cocktober was not kind to the Gamecocks. 3 straight losses at LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama. Now you got to go to Ole Miss. Here's an interesting stat, though, for you, Bear. And it always makes me just sort of, I guess, chuckle, but I think it's interesting. People love to talk about Cocktober. They should be talking about Cockvember. I know that doesn't work. It's not the same play on words.
No, it's Crowvember.
Crowvember. Okay, there you go. Very good. Very good. You realize South Carolina is 14-6 in the month of November under Shane Beamer?
Yep.
This is when they cut it on. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be the case this year. I don't, I guess you could argue they kind of flipped the switch last week. I'm just curious to see, do they build off of that? Or is this a team that is now sitting at 3-5 overall of the season? And that tough loss to Bama and 3 straight losses, is their spirit somewhat broken? I think you're going to learn a lot this weekend because all the goals you had in the preseason are gone, right? I mean, South Carolina's goals in the preseason, they're all gone. Playoff, no, not even a chance. Any other big-time aspirations you had. Do we see a team come out, like you said, treating it like their Super Bowl or fired up for the opportunity to go pull the upset and play spoiler? Or do we see a bunch of guys who are like, yeah, it's over. It's over. The energy, the intensity, I think they will play hard for Shane Beamer. I don't think that's ever something you really have to question. But still, human nature sets in at some point, Cole. Like, the way they've been beaten up, I don't think anybody would blame them if it's like, man, like they just got caught in the worst part of their schedule and it took a toll on them. Where is South Carolina at mentally? That's a big question I have.
was last week the appetizer for the entree that will be Saturday down in Vaught? I mean, that's what you got to ask yourself if you're South Carolina. Like, hey, appetizer's good. I can live off that. That's a great meal. And I'm on a budget. I can have an appetizer. You lost a game. You found a way to be able to win until you didn't. But now you get the big entree and you get Ole Miss. And Ole Miss, just like Alabama, top 10 team in the country, team that's rolling, feeling like that it is in the position to consider itself a college football playoff threat. Is this where you lay down the haymaker? Can you have a quarterback that's mobile? Again, Ole Miss has seen mobile quarterbacks this year. They've gone up against John Mateer. They've gone up against Taylon Green. They've gone up against Jake Retzlaff at Tulane. They have gone up against multiple names of quarterbacks that can get on in the open space and boot, scoot, and boogie. They can make plays. Can you do that if you're Lenore Sellers in this game? Because Sellers had a day with Alabama's defense. And Alabama's defensive line, at least in terms of what we've known up to this point before the Oklahoma game, is miles better than I think Ole Miss's defensive line. Now, the Oklahoma game was a sign of comfort that, hey, we're good. Like, it may have taken us 7 to 8 games to get to this level, but holy crap, when we're good, we are good. We're not Walter Nolan and Jared Ivey and JJ Pegues, but we are still really good with Principal Ewan Manley Yellen and Womack and a couple of other guys. We know how talented we are. But if that was a one and done, kind of a flip, maybe that's at the same time where you got to look at it from the perspective of, hey, Lenore Sellers is built different. Alabama had its fair share of struggles with him. Do you have anything working in the passing attack? Are you able to see those deep passes downfield like we saw with Nick Harbor in the end zone? Does that happen? And for Trinidad Chambliss in this game, people talking about you now joining the Heisman Trophy conversation. People talking about you now being in the running for, SEC Offensive Player of the Year. Another solid performance. Every quarterback is going to have a bad day. Every quarterback has got to have a bad day. I just think if that happens, it's the nature of college football. Is this the bad day? Is this the day that you look back and say, okay, that's a problem? Keelan Lacey, is this the bad day? Is this where you're not able to run the football efficiently? Because even when you look at the numbers against Georgia, Trinidad Chambliss, up until the fourth quarter, had a good day. Talking about a full-on bad day. Is this one of those games where it is not a fun afternoon in the office?
Well, Bear, I think the game plan is simple for Ole Miss, right? I mean, and I say simple. It's not easy. It's simple, though. Contain Lenore Sellers. He had 18 carries a week ago, like you said, 67 yards, a touchdown. He was pretty good through the air, 18 to 32, 222 yards, a touchdown, did throw a pick, had that costly fumble late in the game, which give Bama credit. I mean, 2 guys stripped that football out of his arms. It is what it is. Either way, though, contain Lenore Sellers, contain his impact in the game and what it is. And if you're Ole Miss, Bear, just play a clean game. South Carolina, they need help to beat you. Turnovers, special teams. We've talked about this before. South Carolina, in my opinion, is not good enough to just line up and beat Ole Miss mano a mano. They're not a better team than Ole Miss is. This is truly a case of a team you're trying to go on the road, pull a big upset. You need some breaks to go your way. So if you're Ole Miss, taking care of the football and playing a clean game, I do agree with you. I think Ole Miss's rushing attack, can South Carolina limit them the way they limited Bama? I mean, 72 total yards in the game. Their leading rusher was Jam Miller, who went 10 for 26 yards. Can you limit a Kejuan Lacey? Can you limit Trinidad Chambliss and what he does with his legs? Ty Simpson was solid against them last week. Not great, 24 for 43, 253, 2 touchdowns. Obviously, a lot of that coming on the last drive of the game and late in that game. But yeah, if you're Ole Miss, again, this is a game you should win. However, you and I talked, Bear, when this spread first dropped, it felt a little egregious. It did. It felt a little like Vegas is expecting South Carolina to lay down and die. And I don't know that that's what we're going to get. Lenore Sellers is a scary player. He can make big things happen. He's obviously, I say he's going to need some help. He almost beat Alabama, and he simply did it essentially by himself. I mean, Nick Harbor made a big play, obviously, down the field, 1 catch for 54 in the touchdown, but it was the Lenore Sellers show.
Yeah.
South Carolina will need that type of effort again, and then I think they're still going to need some things to happen. It's like you said last week, Bear, and I know Ole Miss isn't Bama. Like, South Carolina had to have their quarterback turn to Superman, play nearly a perfect game for them, and they still did not win the ball game. So they're going to need some breaks to go their way if this recipe for success and this recipe for an upset, if it's going to come to fruition. If you're Ole Miss, just don't get outside yourself. Play your game. Be smart. I think you win the football game.
Well, I did say that you need to see Lenore Sellers play Superman. I also said he had to play perfect, and he didn't. He had a fumble that was caused by Deontay Lawson, short field position. You go get Tim Keenan to fall on the ball, and lo and behold, you get Jeremy Bernard to have the play of the afternoon by running it on in, and Shane Beamer afterwards saying, we had to let him score. You didn't have to let him score. You could just not let him score, and then, game would have ended in a game-winning field goal, but you let him score. Regardless, that's the point here. Point is that if you are Ole Miss, you are 100% right. Play Ole Miss game, play Ole Miss football. You should win this game. I mean, Ole Miss, once again, continuously is not needing to trust one guy to get the ball to, like they did last season at times with Trey Harris. I mean, you got 4 different players who currently have over 350 receiving yards. Every single one of them has at least 20 catches on the year. So if Harrison Wallace isn't open, go down low to Caden Lee. If Caden Lee's not open, go on to the outside of Deuce Alexander. Get the ball into the hands of Winston Watkins. I mean, like, this kid last week had a day, freshman, and he had a big-time catch against Georgia to set up for a potential scoring drive. Like, you have weapons to where you know that if the explosives win through the air and you're getting 20, 25, 15, 18, 19, 17, 29 yards downfield, eventually the run game is going to start to get a little bit more polished. And that's when Kevin Lacey gets involved. That's when you get a little bit more involved when it comes to design runs with Trinidad Chambliss. That's when, if you really want to, you can maybe turn to a different running back. Say, I don't know, like if you really thought that Logan Diggs was at full speed, you can go to him. He hasn't played since the Washington State game, so his stats really interesting at this standpoint. Regardless, you can trust the ground game to be a benefactor for you. And eventually, South Carolina is going to fall for the bait in one way or another, whether it be on the defensive line, starting to play against the run to where you take the shots downfield. And then if it's not that way, you go ahead and you don't get the passes out, 15 yards. And the run game, which again is a calling card of Kiffin, we don't talk enough about it being the backbone of this team, starts to pile drive forward and put itself in a good position where they can strike. This is a very easy game plan for, I think, Ole Miss, because they've seen so many teams that have similar identities to South Carolina this year. And the fear that I have is that, like I said in the Vanderbilt preview, I want to see something different from Vandy to prove that they're a team that can go to the playoff and win multifaceted ways. I don't want to see anything different from Ole Miss. This is not the week to start messing around and trying to figure out some new trick play. This is not the game to do so. The game is play Ole Miss football, walk away with a dub, and be sitting 1 week closer towards clinching a college football playoff berth. That should be the identity. And again, the back of my mind, I just have the fear. Lane's going to find a way to go ahead and try something stupid, isn't he? Because he tried something stupid down at the goal line when he put in Austin Simmons and Trinidad Chambliss got you there. And what happened? They settled for a field goal instead of 7 points. Like, this is one of those games where it feels like, hey, Lane's toying with us. Listen, I'm all for the tomfoolery. I'm all for the attitude. I'm all for the way that you conduct yourself. This is not the game to open up a brand new set of plays that you have not improvised before, because South Carolina will make you pay if you do that.
The quarterback battle between Trinidad Chambliss and Lenore Sellers. It might be the most fun of the weekend, Bear. You look at all these games. This is going to be two of the most dynamic players in the SEC going at it. That being said, Bear, let's dive into it. Let's lock in some picks. Let's lock in some predictions. You want the honors? You want me to go
I'll
first?
Go first. South Carolina, you know how I feel about you. I will always support the program, especially because of what the War Chickens have done for me and how they've been able to help me grow my brand. So I always appreciate it. It's been a lost year.
No helmet yet, though.
No helmet yet, but we'll get there. Someone, some way will find a way to get me there. It's a lost year. I mean, you need to start looking forward to 2026 on things that are necessities to better this team. And I mean, quite literally, offensive line, finding transfer portal players, looking at that wide receiver room, being willing to pay for certain names to come back for another season, looking at getting rid of some coaches that are very close with Shane Beamer, but this is, again, it's his job on the line next season, because I don't think he's fired. I don't think he goes to Virginia Tech. So you got to start looking ahead at that. A good way to guarantee that the culture is trending still in a proper direction is finding a way to beat Alabama, which you didn't do, but at times it did feel like you were almost there, and beating Ole Miss back-to-back weeks, top 10 games. Showing that team is still there. So can you do that? I think they do. I think South Carolina shows on up and they make this a 4-quarter battle. I think that South Carolina is going to respond for how they played last week. I think South Carolina is going to prove that last week was truly the appetizer for this game. And again, Every team is allowed to have a down day, and this might be Ole Miss's down day. It's not enough to lose to South Carolina. I think Ole Miss is going to win the football game, but it's going to be a down day for Ole Miss's offense. It is a survival of the fittest mode. I think that Trinidad Chambliss is not going to be perfect in this matchup. I think that you're going to have a lot of questions when it comes to the run game. But ultimately, I just look at the identity of how Ole Miss has played up to this point. How they've been able to respond, how they've been able to be fast, how they've been able to play with tempo, how they've been able to get better defensively. And I think that in the fourth quarter, that's the part where it stands on out. They couldn't get the job done against Georgia. They found a way to respond against Oklahoma. I think they once again find a way to respond against South Carolina. That line is ridiculous. I'm taking South Carolina with the points. That's actually one of my best bets of the week at 12.5. But I think Ole Miss finds a way to win this game. I'm going to go a final score of 34-24. Just somehow we see a pull away at the last second. They win by 10.
Yeah, Bear, the interesting thing with South Carolina, like I mentioned, going in the month of November, they've been so good under Shane Beamer, 14-6 in the month of November specifically, and we've seen some of their signature wins in the Beamer era occur. Meanwhile, Lane Kiffin and company, you mentioned it yet again, it's we get to this point in the season, not saying certainly it's going to happen, but this is typically where the other shoe drops, and they lose one they shouldn't. We saw it just a season ago. Ole Miss plays a clean football game, they're going to win this football game. It's as simple as that. Even if they don't, even if they could lose the turnover margin by 1 and potentially still win. I think they're that much better of a football team than South Carolina. Here's the deal, though. You know as well as I do, Cole. You've watched them long enough, and I certainly have watched them long enough. South Carolina doesn't just let you die when you're on your deathbed. They don't just let you go at peace, right? They make it really like it is a grueling, painful death, right? And I think that's going to be the case yet again. I agree with you. And it may be a late ad for me because it wasn't on one of my best bets, but you and I both, we reacted the same. I texted you, was like, man, that 13.5 number just feels, I know South Carolina's not good and they're not really playing for much of anything. Although I think Shane Beamer, that team will rally around him. They'll play for him. I don't think you ever really have to worry about that team like quitting on him or quitting on a season early. There's the revenge factor from last year. Obviously, I think South Carolina would like to get back on Ole Miss in Oxford, what happened last year. But again, South Carolina doesn't let you down easy. They make it really difficult, really grueling, and really painful. I think South Carolina is going to have a chance to win this game. Yet again, I think they're going to have a chance to win this game late. But they're going to do something stupid, some blunder, some mistake, some mishap. And in a game like this, if you're going to pull the upset, kind of like last week, Bear, if you're going to go on the road and beat a team the caliber of Ole Miss, you're going to have to play nearly a perfect game. I think there's a lot of advantages I like for the Rebels. Heck, I take it all the way up. I think they've got the coaching advantage. I think Lane Kiffin and his staff will coach circles around Shane Beamer. I do. I think you saw it in this game last year. Beamer had a bad decision early in the game with the decision to fake the punt in his own territory. It backfired. The rest is history in that one. So I think there'll be something that happens like that. Again, Ole Miss is the better team. I think South Carolina gives a valiant effort. They do something stupid late to shoot themselves in the foot. All in all, though, Ole Miss does hold on, gets the win. But I don't think it's the decisive win that Vegas is telling us it will be. I've got, and again, I think great minds think alike, Bear. I got Ole Miss 31, South Carolina 23, covering that 12.5 number. It may be a late ad for me. The message it will send if Ole Miss goes out there and covers 12.5, though, Bear, is Lane Kiffin and these Rebels ain't messing around. Like this is. I think it will be, as much as a lot of people maybe are expecting it, I think it will be a big-time statement like, hey, like the focus, this team is locked in. And I do think the chatter, the outside noise will galvanize this team yet again. I don't think they're going to let it serve as a distraction. But again, I think South Carolina does give a valiant effort. They never let you down easy when they lose, but I think they will lose, fall to 3-6. Ole Miss continues their path to the playoff, 31-23 victory for the Rebs. Hotty toddy, lock the Vaught.
I'll tell you what, man. You want to have a good way to prove to Lane Kiffin he's got it all locked in? Keep winning. Keep winning big. Keep winning soundly. That's a pretty good answer on, hey, thanks, but no thanks to any other school out there. I'm right where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, and in closing, Bear, you make that point. I want to say this. What's the narrative right now out there about Ole Miss compared to LSU, Florida? Well, you can't win a title at Ole Miss, or you can't do things at Ole Miss that you can do at LSU, Florida. Meanwhile, we are actively talking about them going to the college football playoff, potentially going to Atlanta.
Yeah,
we are actively talking about them doing that. It's kind of ironic when you think about it. They're doing something that LSU and Florida wish they were doing, and I think it's ironic that Lane could prove in this midst of this season, yes, I can. Yes, we can. We can do exactly what you're saying we can't do.
The last thing I'll say is that Lane's always been somebody who's been doubted. He was doubted after losing at USC. He was doubted after losing with the Raiders. He was doubted after becoming an offensive coordinator for Nick Saban and going to that pathway. Ole Miss is a doubted program. Sometimes those are just fits that need to work together for the end-all be-all. And maybe that's why in 25, 30 years, we're talking about Lane Kiffin being the greatest coach in Ole Miss history, which he already is. But it also ends with a few titles and a field named after him at Vaught Hemingway Stadium.
There you have it. Bear and I both going with the Ole Miss Rebels to find a way over South Carolina this weekend. We'd love to hear your thoughts. You agree with us? You disagree? Who comes out on top when the Rebels and Gamecocks do battle Saturday night at the Vaught? Guys, it's going to do all for us. We appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Before we get out of here, do want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel because, of course, as always, we are brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Guys, FanDuel's got an offer you don't want to miss this NFL season. New customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet $5. If it wins, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. You can build parlays, bet player props, ride the live lines. Whatever your style, FanDuel's got you covered. The NFL season's here. College basketball starts in less than a week. Obviously, college football in full swing. We got the World Series going on, NBA, NHL. Now is the time to get in on the action. And the only question is, are you ready to play? Visit FanDuel.com/SECU to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Once again, FanDuel.com/SECU to get in on the action today. Guys, once again, we appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. As always, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts, all across your favorite social media platforms, as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. For Cole the Bear Thompson, I'm Chris Phillips. We're signing off. Y'all have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you all on the other side.